It's easy to think you understand Agile, but if you're actually really truthful with yourself, and you look at your own actions, how Agile are you?
97% of C-level executives say that they are good role models for Agile, and only 2% of their employees say that they are good role models for agility.
CEOs and executives, they know very little about agility. They think Agile is the thing the IT department does, some methodology. So agility for me is...
Hi everyone. Today we are joined by Joshua Kerievsky, who in the words of Marty Cagan, wrote the first true book about Agile. I completely agree. Today's world is very complex. Its complexity grows. Speed of change grows even faster. It pushes us to change ourselves. So what product leaders and design leaders can do to adapt to these changes? It's not a process, it's not methodology, it's not a workflow. Let's see what Joshua can tell about that. What companies like Google, Ford, and many other successful startups did to adapt to fast-changing environment, and what should we do differently? Let's do our reality check on our agility together with Joshua. Okay, Joshua, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Joshua, you are an expert in Agile, in changes, and you worked in software development forever, like a person who is a veteran. Worked with huge companies in Wall Street, trained engineers in biggest companies in the world, like Google, Ford. We see that current IT technology is changing. You have a lot of AI coming and speed is increasing every year. So do you think that Agile is still the same, or we have to reinvent it now?
I think our understanding of Agile needs to mature and change over time. I think it's easy to think you understand Agile, but if you're actually really truthful with yourself, and you look at your own actions, how Agile are you? And the more I look at myself, I see plenty of room for improvement. It's not easy being Agile. So it requires a mindset that is very quick to adapt to changes. And when changes happen, a lot of us don't adapt quickly. I'm a huge tennis nut, and I look at the best tennis players in the world. They are working really hard off the court to be agile on the court, which means there's a lot of preparation, a lot of flexibility and strength training and mental training. And it all goes towards, can we be agile on the court? When there's having a bad day, can I adapt my game quickly to deal with the problems I'm running into, whether it's with the opponent or with the weather or with my injuries? Very rapid. And Novak Djokovic, who's one of the best players of all time, has said champions are the ones that adapt the quickest. It's the same in business and the same, mostly in life. You've got to be able to adapt quickly, and that's not easy.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the best ideas to check what smart people are doing. Usually the smartest people are in business, so they invent lots of processes to help business stay accountable and adapt. And we should try to implement similar process to our personal life. We in our family run retrospectives sometimes just to analyze how our previous week or months went, and also accountability sessions, like because if you're not accountable before yourself, or it's not good. But if you have family members and they can give you feedback, that's much easier.
That's fantastic. I love it. Good for you.
I did research and found some reports from British consultancy on Agile, state of Agile culture from 2023, and they interviewed more than 1,000 practitioners. And what they found that top management usually thinks that everything is great with agility of their organization. Like 97% of C-level executives say that they are good role models for Agile. And only 2% of their employees say that they are good role models for agility. 70% of employees think that their organization is not ready for changes and rapidly changing environment. And there's lots of similar numbers. I don't know like how scientific is this research, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's reality? And why do different people in organization have different opinions about agility of their organization?
I think, first of all, we're in the early days of the Agile movement. It's the early days. You could say, 2 decades have passed. Doesn't matter. We're still early days. CEOs and executives, they know very little about agility. They think Agile is the thing the IT department does, some methodology. That's what they think. That is a really immature view of agility. All right. They have no idea that the agility that's so important is organizational agility, the agility of the company to react to changes rapidly, gracefully. So that would put them in the early days by thinking that Agile's going well. The methodology we're using, I mean, who cares about methodologies? Is the organization agile? Is our teams agile? Our departments agile? And that's a high bar. It's not easy to be agile, right? There's a lot of preparation, a lot of stretching and flexibility and strength training, and metaphorically for teams or divisions or organizations. But the benefits are very, very important for businesses.
How would you evaluate the new team? You have to check and give them feedback. What is the actual state of agility there and what could be improved? Because I think lots of our viewers or listeners would want to know, even me, like how agile is my organization? Because when I was reading this report, I said, okay, yeah, I am also this kind of C-level manager who thinks that organization is pretty agile. But how do I know actually that we are?
Well, most organizations, unfortunately, are stuck in the game of building components. If you're talking about the software industry, they're component teams building separate components, and there are project managers who have to scatter the work out to individuals who build components and then gather it back together to try to integrate them all late in the game. This is a very slow and difficult way to actually approach software development. It pushes the risks off into the future, and then they become more problematic. So fundamentals of how we work in an agile way are mostly in the minority. A fundamental agile concept is evolutionary design. It's basically starting with a walking skeleton of the thing you're building, whether it's a feature or a whole system. And we don't really see that widely adopted. What we see are component teams. So for a lot of companies, they already had an organizational structure. They already have a management structure. They have a structure. Agile comes along and they say, great, okay, so now we're going to sprint every 2 weeks. And we're going to have stand-up meetings. And what else does it tell us to do? Cross-functional teams, no, that's too much. We're not going to do those. That's crazy. But we'll do the basics of Scrum. The results aren't too great. And that's what we see when we go in consultancy. We go to most organizations. They're either doing Scrum or Safe, and it's usually not delivering great value.
Yeah. And there is also lots of imbalance I see in the industry. So we have clients who come to us and they stuck in discovery phase. Their discovery is like half a year or longer, and they still can't start development because they still don't understand what they have to build and how it would work and what kind of technologies they will use. And there are other organizations who come with almost implemented software and they say, okay, now we need some help with design because we showed this to our users. They don't understand the software at all. And do they need that and how to use it? So how do you find the balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important question. There's a mantra in Joy of Agility called be balanced and graceful. And ultimately, that comes from the fact that you cannot be quick if you're not balanced, right? So to be balanced, you need to look at what needs to be in balance. And yes, discovery and delivery need to be in balance. How much time are you spending quickly learning what is necessary to build and what isn't? How much time are you spending on that? And how many experiments are you doing to validate that cheaply and quickly, right? Eric Ries would call it capital efficient experimentation, right? It's quick and it's cheap. And you do it so that you learn what not to build. You learn kind of what is really critical here. Some companies also just put out, experiments rapidly where they want to see, do people click? Is it of interest? So before building a feature, they might put in some fake stuff, or they might, show it to only a few of the users of the system to see, will they actually use this? Is this of interest to them? And get data quickly before making a big decision, to invest in some set of features or capability. So the getting better at learning faster is really important to being more agile.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because when you're a startup, you want to be quick, but usually you hurry and can make a lot of mistakes. And you need to do lots of discovery, but you have no money and time because of competition. You have to just try to build something. But then when you're a huge company with lots of people, lots of resources, you have time for discovery, but it's too late because it's too hard to change your product. And we end in the situations when the huge products are not changing for years. And it requires harsh management decisions just to push company for change, because company itself will not change at all.
Yeah, and there's other things, like a lot of people in the software industry, I love them, but they don't know a lot about business. So in business, things happen differently than in software engineering. Sometimes in business, you have to basically capture market share. There's a big bank in Norway that wanted to be the source for electronic payments, right? So on mobile payments, you have a mobile phone and you want to pay someone with your phone. They wanted to basically be the entire nation of Norway's provider for that. Well, guess what? There were some fast-moving startups that started taking over in that space, right? And the bank was like, oh, no, this is no good. We have to squash them. We have to gain the market share, and we have to do it as rapidly as possible. They did not have great engineers in their company, right? They didn't have awesome, skilled software practitioners that do test-driven development and continuous integration, trunk-based development. They didn't. They relied on kind of outsourced development companies with big names that are global. And but they just said, great, let's just throw something together and then market the living heck out of it, right? Market. It's a huge marketing budget and okay software. They ended up having to rewrite a lot of that software, but because of the marketing and the blasted marketing out there, they became the standard. They got all the market share for this mobile electronic payments. That's a business story. That's not so much about the choice of how to engineer. It's about gaining market share and leading a market.
Hopefully soon we will have more of that education as part of technical education. People will need to understand more about architecture and about business solutions. What do you think? Like, agility is like a North Star. You can't be 100% happy with how agile you are, or is there such thing like too much of agility? Because for some markets, for some industries, for some companies, it's making more harm when you are too adaptive to everything which changes every year, for example, and not standing on your beliefs and your strategy.
Well, I think you can be reactive, where you're reacting way too fast, right? Sometimes we've done some interviews of our customers about our website at Industrial Logic, and then we'll get one interview and they'll say, I don't like this, and then all of a sudden people will be like, let's change that, And sometimes we're like, well, it is a good point. However, what about what other people said? Did anyone else point that out? Is this a pattern, or is this just one person's opinion? And so you could be too reactive. I wouldn't call that being adaptive. I'd call that rushing, hurrying and rushing.
Mhm. You have a nice thoughts about fear, that it's not good for software development. But we know lots of cases when big companies were managed by fear and stress and deadlines, and they got to results. For example, Ben Horowitz, in his book The Hard Things About Hard Things, he told that he asked his team to work without weekends for half a year or something like that, because they are going to get out of business if they will not do. Elon Musk likes also to put this kind of pressure on people to work hard till deadlines, because companies perhaps going out of business if it's Tesla or SpaceX. We had similar stories from Jeff Bezos, who is also trying to the culture of VR startups. It's a first day, it's nothing, we can't be relaxed. And there are other stuff too, yeah. So in general, how do you find the balance?
Yeah, I look at it as, basically finding the right balance is the most important thing. And it's very contextual. So I worked last weekend, all weekend. We also had people come over and had a nice, dinner party, but I worked a lot of last weekend, and one or two other colleagues did that with me. They also worked last weekend, and it was for something that we're trying to win some new business from a company, and it was justified. We felt fine about it, and I said, "Hey, take some time off during the week since we worked weekend days. Let's take some time off and get some balance there." Now, we don't do that very often. I think we'd get to burnout if we did that all the time. Um, it's basically very contextual, and I would imagine that the people that were working 6 months for Horowitz probably had stock options or something like that, where they have skin in the game in terms of putting in those hours and sacrificing family time or friends. So and if it lasted forever, it would obviously fail pretty miserably. So it needs to be in balance. But I would never say something as bold as we never ever work one weekend. We never work overtime. That's inflexible, right? There are times when you have to flex a little bit, and then account for it. Get the balance back. Take some time off and recharge. I think recharging is hugely underrated, and that we need more time recharging. We get some of our best ideas away from work. So if you talk about being efficient, being in front of your computer all the time is actually not too efficient. You need to get away, go canoeing, go hiking, go visit some cities, get your brain off of the work, and you might end up with some excellent ideas when you return. So, it's, again, one big experiment as to what works well.
When you build a team, do you think you need people with different levels of agility that they will balance the team, or you want to hire as agile people as possible?
I think Agile can be learned. So, I think as long as there's a few people that understand it really well in a team, then it'll spread, especially if they're working collaboratively. If they're working in silos, not so much. But if they are working collaboratively, the agility will spread. I would love for more people to really study principles of agility rather than methodologies. Following a method is really just not necessarily going to get you where you want to be, especially because most people don't even understand why are they following this method. They don't understand the need for it. So the principles really get closer towards the needs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think the software development will change in next decade? So we have lots of bold statements that in few years AI will write all the software. There will be more consultancy work perhaps, because now what's a software as a service in the future, hopefully lots of companies will be able to afford writing similar software for themselves, maybe more customized software. How that is going to influence development in general, and how do we all need to adapt to this future?
I think AI will help in some regards. I also think it will hurt. I think there'll be too much AI generated code that's going to be in need of fixing. And you can ask AI to fix it too, but you're not necessarily going to get simple design and the kind of deep thought that goes into like what's really needed here, right? What do we need to produce? What do we not need to produce? So AI is in a bubble right now, but I think AI will be a permanent member of the software tool chain. It will be a useful tool and probably get more useful over time as it matures. But we have to be aware that AI has learned off of bad code. There's not a lot of awesomely simply written, beautiful code. So garbage in, garbage out happens all the time. So you have to know what good code is. And unfortunately, that's a minority of people that really know that stuff, that have really been scholars and studied what excellent software design is. And so I worry a little bit about the quality of the AI generated results.
I think we all can agree that development is going faster and faster. Like the time you had to spend for writing CRM system 20 years ago, and now it's a different story. Yeah, maybe 10 times faster now. But what does it mean for teams, for developers who will need to switch to a new project every few months, maybe because there's nothing to do there for so long? You don't need a team of 20 people, maybe 5 people will be enough.
I mean, team size is always an interesting discussion too, because I'd rather have 5 very, very experienced engineers building something than 20 like sort of inexperienced engineers. So I always find the size of teams to be an interesting topic. But I really believe that our future will be better if more and more people become scholars of software development and really study how to do it well. Right now, we have too much of a herd mentality, people just following the herd, these PRs and branches and all this stuff that real experts don't do. They do trunk-based development, they do continuous integration, they approach software development as a balance of validating whether something works and writing code. So it's the balance. You're constantly checking to see, is it working? You're not just writing code and throwing it over to QA people to validate. It's a minute by minute thing. And I think that we're missing that, right now. So I'd love to see a resurgence of interest in extreme programming and the kind of awesome stuff that happens in that kind of environment, because XPers continue to do XP. There are no XPers I know of that stop doing it willingly. It's still a state-of-the-art approach to software development, and with some modifications here and there, but for the most part, it's intact.
Totally agree with you on need to study. We see the similar situation in design. When lots of designers are switchers from other industries because there was no UX education 10 years ago. In most cases, it was like boot camps and courses. So we had to switch from other industries. But then they started working on projects and it was okay because the level of user experience was so poor. Then even if you just have a designer, it's already much better. But that doesn't mean that it's good enough. It's similar like with state of Agile. People think that they are Agile, that they're doing good job, but it's a question if you compare yourself to what it could be actually done, what kind of process you could have. And I agree with you. We are in early stage because we can do much more.
Yes. I worry too when we talk about scholars. The thing is, scholars study scholarly works. Scholars study the best literature, the best from the best instructors. We have a forest of courses and books and things out there. How do you choose, the best of the best stuff? That's important because what we're seeing is even people that want to learn TDD, they're going to some of these websites that charge $15 for a TDD course, and they're not learning TDD. They're learning from a deeply inexperienced instructor who threw together a video-based course, and it's scary. We've been analyzing them lately and just going like, oh my gosh, it's already hard to teach people TDD, test-driven development. Now it's even harder because they're learning the wrong way and they think they know it. So a lot of challenges in the software industry.
And the problem is that industry was always growing so fast. I heard the research that average product manager has 4 years of experience as a product manager. Pretty similar team compositions in many teams. Like you have lots of people who have a few years of experience, and then you want them to know everything. You expect them to know business. You expect them to know all the frameworks, all the new libraries, and yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I once asked Jerry Weinberg, the famous Jerry Weinberg, who's written 30 books and is an industry legend, and how do you keep up with all the stuff that's out there? And he said, easy. I only read the best stuff. I only study the best stuff. So there's hundreds, thousands of books, right? I mean, you got to just pick the ones that are the best. So to me, as a product manager or whatever role you want to play in the software field, discover what those great works are or those great instructors are, and just study with them. And it's a lot easier, right? You won't have to worry so much about keeping up with everything.
During your career, did you have a situation when you came to the team and you see, okay, we can't help them, so it's impossible scenario. It's easier to build a new team than change this one.
Yeah.
Or when you come to the company and see, okay, that's a good place to change things. We can help.
Yeah, we started doing assessments very early on, and the assessments give us a chance to talk to the people who would be going through the potential change. And if they, for the most part, don't want anything to do with it, they don't want to change, we say, this is a waste of time. There's no point in working with these folks. Or it could be, it's actually just a bad time to start this work, this change. It's not good. You're right in the middle of something, and it would be disruptive to start it now. So let's wait. But for the most part, if people don't want to change, you've got to walk away. It's a waste of time and money.
Did you measure success of your projects when you finish consultancy, when you finish the trainings? Do you know what was the success and how many teams actually improved? Or it's really hard to measure because it's invisible?
We look at DORA metrics. We look at, are they continuously improving after we leave? We look at, are their customers happier? Are there more frequent quality deployments? Is the software atrophying, or is it staying in good shape? Knowledge silos, are they a lot of times when we leave, a new manager comes along and says, why are people ensembling? Let's get them back to soloing. They don't understand the value of ensembling, and therefore they think it's going to be more efficient to go back to soloing. So what is a success, right? I mean, it can be a temporary success, and we've seen some of our greatest work just basically dismantled by venture capital companies that acquire the company and then just take them back to the Stone Ages. So in some ways, it's castles made of sand. And you have to be humble enough to know that. You're really ultimately helping to change people. And those people may go on to other projects and bring those skills with them. But, it's hard to necessarily, you can point to temporary successes, but I believe in the software field, things are constantly shifting and changing. And what was a success one day will be viewed later on as, they change it up without understanding it. So it's unfortunately, because software is so invisible, and because the process of building it's so invisible, it's very easy to not even be aware of value when it's there. I'm talking like, think about how slow it is when we have knowledge silos. Different people that are the only expert in that one area of the software. And if they leave, or if something happens to them, we're stuck. That's one risk of many risks that we spend time mitigating through our process.
If, for example, there is a new manager in the company, VP of design or head of design department or VP of product, and he wants to change his organization, what kind of words would you recommend him to use in the management meeting to influence changes, to start this transformation?
One thing I think is it really truly helps to understand the financial climate of the company before you start making a bunch of changes. I think that too often in business, people want to do something, but they're not aware of the financial context. So if the company is really suffering financially, the appetite for change might be low. I mean, it has to be at least discussed, right? What kind of changes could we potentially consider doing? We have to. So I just think in business, understanding finances is really important. You can have self-organizing teams, but if they're unaware of the finances of the company or the department or the budget for that particular initiative, if they're unaware of that stuff, you're treating them like babies, and they're not babies. And making them exposed to the finances and the financial constraints, very important to how they approach change. And that would be the same for any new manager. Understand the company finances to be able to figure out what would really move the needle and help this organization.
Maybe we can go to the rapid round to answer maybe a minute per question.
Sure.
For our audience to learn more about you. So Joshua, how would you explain to your mother what do you do?
Mostly we help people in the software industry, become a lot more agile.
What book influenced your product or business vision before you started writing books, or maybe after? What is the most recommended book that influenced you?
Oh, well, that's a hard one for in life. But in business, I would say a book called Selling the Invisible, since I'm in the services industry. That book by Harry Beckwith was almost like a Bible. So I'd keep it by my desk all the time and pick up a short story from it and read it. That's why I wrote Joy of Agility the same exact way, all short stories. It's meant to be, you pick it up, get some inspiration. So Selling the Invisible would be that book for business.
What is your favorite product that gave you the best experience?
I've really, really enjoyed the collaborative nature of the Google suite of products, the slides, Google Docs. Being able to work with others simultaneously on things like that, it's just been phenomenal. And of course, I've also loved like IntelliJ and tools like that, which on the software side have automated things that were difficult in the past. Of course, I always want them to do more, but the automated refactoring tools that were built into the IDEs was always just glorious to use. I mean, yeah, occasionally there'd be defects and things I didn't like, but that really changed the game for me for refactoring code. So I've always really enjoyed that.
If you could have a dinner party with influential person in product, software development, design, who would be this person?
Well, I would definitely enjoy sitting down with Sir Johnny Ives, who worked, of course, very closely with, Steve Jobs. I think, he was there all along the way, helping to design those wonderful products. So I think it'd be very, very interesting.
Okay, thanks for Joshua for coming. That was insightful, that was interesting, and I guess partially practical. Hopefully we will be able to advocate more for agility and the joy of agility in our teams, with projects, with our clients, with our companies. Maybe you have anything else you would like to add at the end?
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Yuri, and thanks to Christina for helping to set this up, and really appreciate the time we spent together, and I hope it was valuable. So if you're interested in more things about Joy of Agility, there's a whole website called joyofagility.com, and pick up the book. I have the audio edition. I narrated myself, so that's fun to listen to, and I hope it can help you become more agile.